If you're an artist, you have to listen to these podcasts. These are my top 3 podcast recommendations for artists. I have more, but we'll stick with this for now. The first is called the Savvy Painter podcast with Antrese Wood. Antrese has a backlog of over 250 episodes interviewing modern day thriving artists. She really gets into the nitty gritty of their creative processes, studio spaces and setups, their daily routines. She talks to everyone from oil painters to draftsmen to sculptors. I always come away with little tidbits of things that I could do and incorporate into my studio to help me be a better artist. This is one of my favorite podcasts to listen to while I'm actually painting because it just feels like I have 2 friends with me in my studio. It's so great. I think you'd really enjoy it. The second show is called the Art Curious podcast. This is straying away from modern art and artists and taking a peek back into art history. Jennifer does a really good job in these 30 to 40 minute episodes of packing in information about all of the most famous artists you've heard of. She breaks her show up into themed series. So there's one series on famous art rivalries, which I really enjoyed. And then there's another series on women artists that you've never heard of but should know about. Jennifer's storytelling is great, and I always learn a lot from these episodes. The third and final recommendation is probably my favorite podcast of all time, Art Holes. Art Holes, Art Holes, Art Holes. I love this show. It was born from a genuine curiosity about art and art history. The host, Michael Anthony, knew nothing about either of those topics before going into the show. He's a comedian, he also has a full-time job. He just kind of got curious about this topic he knew nothing about and goes super in-depth into studying each of these famous artists of the past. The show is called Art Holes because he discovered in his research that most of these artists were huge assholes. But he's a comedian, he tells these stories in such an entertaining way. I have re-listened to many of these seasons. The Jackson Pollock one was great, the Caravaggio one was my favorite. Actually, no, the Frida one. He goes so in-depth into these artists' backgrounds, their upbringings, their family history, the history of the country they were brought up in, and the cultural events happening at the time. You gain such an appreciation for these artists and where they came from that you feel like you know them as people by the end of these seasons. The show is so well done and so funny. I regularly laugh out loud at some of these episodes. Yeah, it's definitely one of my favorite podcasts of all time. If you check out any of these shows, let me know. But in the meantime, drop a comment and let me know what show you listen to that never fails to spur your creativity.